So Bones and I were sitting around chit-chatting this morning when he got very deep in depth thinking about why do kids look a little bit like their mom and a little bit like their dad? And he said, "Is there anything to that, Mr. Ferenzi? Why do kids look like a blend of both parents?" And I said, "Yes, there is. There's actually a reason for that. That's because human beings and larger multicellular organisms, reproduce by the means of sexual reproduction. And that requires two parents. Okay? Two parents are required in sexual reproduction, whether it's a bunny rabbit, whether it's elephants, or whether it's human beings. The process occurs basically the same. What happens is the male has a sex cell called the sperm. The sperm cell is the male sex cell. You can see a picture of it here. It has a head and a long tail. The female sex cell is the egg. You can see it here. Okay? So, what has to happen is the male sex cell, the sperm, has to fertilize the female sex cell, the egg, in order to create a new organism or a new offspring, whether it's a bunny rabbit, a puppy, a cat, a frog, a human being, or anything. Larger organisms reproduce by sexual reproduction. Now, here's the thing. The sperm cell doesn't have enough genetic information in it in order to make a new person. The egg cell does not have enough genetic information in it to make a new person. They need to combine somehow. They need to get together. So what happens is they each actually have only half of the amount of genetic information necessary to make a new offspring. So let's talk about human beings. A human being has a total of 46 chromosomes. 46 chromosomes that make you who you are. Okay? Now, the sperm cell contains 23 of them. The egg cell contains another 23 of them. When they merge together, that makes a total of 46. So the sperm cell has to fertilize an egg cell. They have to meet, they have to get together, they have to combine in order to make a new human being. Okay? That's why you are 50% of your mom and 50% of your dad, and you're a blend of 50-50 of both of them to make you. Now, what is it called when the male sex cell, the sperm, actually gets together with the egg? Well, that's what's known as fertilization. Fertilization is when the sperm cell, as you can see in this picture here, enters the egg. Okay? That's what's now known as fertilization. Okay? Now, certain organisms, such as human beings, okay, we fertilize the eggs internally, which means inside the body. Now, fertilization in human beings happens in the fallopian tube of the female. Then the new fertilized egg will implant itself in the uterus of the female, and now mommy's pregnant and carrying a baby. Not all organisms do it that way. Sometimes fertilization occurs outside the body. Certain fish and frogs fertilize their eggs outside the body. So what happens with fish or frogs is the female fish will lay hundreds of eggs all over the place in a nice quiet spot in the river or a lake or somewhere in the water. And then the male fish or frog will come and spread its sperm all over the place. Okay, now they lay hundreds of eggs at a time, and thousands of sperm have to be spread all over these eggs because most of them don't survive. If you've ever seen the movie Nemo, Finding Nemo, you know that when Nemo's family got attacked at the very beginning of the movie by the barracuda, that most of those fertilized eggs did not survive, but Nemo did. Okay, so that happens a lot in external fertilization because the environment and predators outside are searching for that for food. While in human beings, a female produces one egg a month in which you have an opportunity to fertilize it internally. Now, once the egg is fertilized, it changes its name. It's one of my favorite names in science. You want to know what it is, Bones? You know what it is? I just think it's fun to say. It's called a zygote. That's right, zygote. Make sure you know zygote. Zygote is a fertilized egg. Okay, when the egg finally becomes fertilized, we call it a zygote. I just can't just say zygote. I have to say zygote. Okay, that's a fertilized egg. And what happens now is the zygote starts to double itself. One cell becomes two. 2 becomes 4, 4 becomes 8, 8 becomes 16, 16 becomes 32, 32 becomes 54, 54 becomes 112, or I already messed up, I don't even know. Okay, you can see now what happens is as the zygote starts to split, these cells will start to turn into different parts of your body. It's called cellular differentiation. Some of these cells may turn into your skin. Some of these cells may turn into your heart. Some of these cells may turn into your lungs. And as you continue to develop inside the female body, you start to grow all of your different body parts. So if we think about it, when do we change the most? I don't know. We're going to talk about that. All right. So now, multicellular organisms change. You need to grow. You need to grow and you need to develop. Now, these changes begin after fertilization, after that zygote is made. Okay, all of these cell divisions start, and all the genetic information is passed on to each different cell. We can see a little chick cell here, okay, developing. Here's what it looks like in real life. Now, if we think about it, do we change more after fertilization before we're born, Bones? Or do we change more afterwards? Let me think. I'll give you a second. When we fertilize, we're one cell, and then we turn into a whole big person, and after we're born, we just kind of get bigger and smellier. And yeah, we actually change more immediately after fertilization before we're born, because we're going from one cell, from a zygote to an actual person. We're growing our heart, we're growing our skin, we're growing our lungs, we're growing our kidneys, we're growing all of that stuff. After we're born, we just get bigger, taller, more hair, and smellier. That's all that happens. So when we actually develop, when we actually grow, we grow more before we're born than after we're born. Mind blown. Now, what do human beings look like when they're developing inside the female? Here's a quick picture. I'm not going to hang out too long on this picture, but you can see we're actually growing our different body parts, okay, after fertilization, before birth, until we have enough body parts and are ready to be born. So you can take a little while and go on our website and take a look at this and see the different stages of development before you're born as a new human being. And welcome to the world. Now, after we're born, we have to grow up. Okay? So, before we're born, we turn from cells into tissues into organs, organ systems, and then finally we're an organism. And all those cells have different types of jobs based on their shapes to make us who we are. We studied that when we did the human body. Now, as we grow up, our body does change. Okay? So we start off as a single cell. After we're born, that's called infancy, childhood, adolescence, and finally, we're a full-fledged adult. Plants go through the same thing. They have a life cycle that they will go through, which we'll talk about at another time. Okay? So, to review, sexual reproduction involves two parents, male, female. Male sex cell is the sperm, female sex cell is the egg. Once they merge, that's called fertilization. After fertilization, you become a zygote in which the cells start to double and reproduce and reproduce and reproduce, and you are grown until you are born. Okay? That happens in many different kinds of multicellular, larger organisms. And then we're going to develop outside the body from there. Hope that answered your question, Bones. That's why we're a blend of mom and dad.